Start.
Are we live?
We can't hear you, Kyle.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle Licott. Sorry, we're just doing a few technical difficulties and working through a few tests, but we are live with you right now. I'm your host for another edition of VC Welcome back. Day 3 this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We are here. There is a lot to talk about, and all of what we have been talking as we do every week builds up upon each other, leading every show and up to the end of the week where we talk about all that is happening in venture capital. But today we've got a very special episode, and today's episode is about social media. And one can argue we're all on social media at all times, between not just traditional social media that we know of, Facebooks and the Twitters, the Instagrams of the world, to then newer social medias like Snapchat, TikTok, Triller, and many others, to even newer ones like Zoom, Discord, Slack. All of these channels we're constantly communicating on, we're constantly building relationships, and we're constantly connected. This is good and bad. It's bad because, well, we're constantly connected, which leads to the good, meaning we can now build relationships and connect with people all around the world, anywhere, at any time, and get to work with and learn from all of the best, no matter what they are. We talked about this in an early episode of this same subject, and the fact that right now, in this time, how connected we are from a social perspective. You literally can learn any subject at any time from the greatest expert within that said subject, anywhere in the world, because of social media. However, as investors, this opens up an entire new world for us. An entire new world. We now can have some of the greatest companies and greatest founders and teams present to us, reach out to us, pitch to us without ever leaving our living rooms, our phones, our devices, and have new ways to connect and build those relationships and see the thought leadership, the development and growth of those companies. For founders, this means you have more outlets than you've ever had to date to get a hold of any investor, including us, at any time. Key phrase here: anywhere, anytime, any person. Let's dive in. But before we do, big thank you to you, our live audience, for joining us. As we do, we're always appreciative. If you like what you hear, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, as we've got more content coming for you on VC every single day. And if you're an investor, you'd like to join the show, open your mind, share your thoughts on subjects like we're going to be talking about today and others, or you'd like to talk about what you're seeing happen in various markets or regions around the world, we'd love to have you. Entrepreneurs, we'd love to hear from you. This is not just a show for investors. This is a show for you as well. We host shows where we'd love to have you a part of them. And if you'd like to pitch us or other investors live, we'd love to have you here on our show as well. So do reach out. Myself, Elena, Maria, the entire LA Token team, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out, go to latoken.com and subscribe as well. Shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for bringing VC possible to your screens or your social media live streams anywhere in the world, in any device you may be working on. Now, let's get started. I think I teed that up enough, as my microphone was having issues, so I've made up for it. Let's introduce everybody. Irina, you and I were talking offline longest, so I'm going to start with you. Welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure. A little intro background on yourself for everybody.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be back. I'm really excited to have this topic. I think it's so relevant to everything that's happening right now. My name is Irina Litchfield. I'm president of Lumeria, space platform for space industry. I'm making sure that space as an asset class becomes a reality. I'm founder of Blockchain Cubed, financial technology company, and I advise to a number of companies. You know the list by now if you watched me before, so that's fine. And I love supporting entrepreneurs, and I love supporting VCs.
And that's great. And that's what we do here on VC. We both support not only entrepreneurs, but also VCs. There's so much to share, so many lessons learned, but so much to talk about. And so much is happening. I mean, again, Zoom has become my biggest social network at this point. I'm on it more than I'm on anything else. Look back to Facebook in its early days, I spent more time on Zoom. But nonetheless, it's a great way to connect, see people versus just the AOL instant message, dating myself, or the IRC chats where we had no clue who anybody was. Now we've got a little something here. With that being said, my man, Jason from the Midwest, welcome back to the show. A little introduction and background on yourself as well.
Great. Thank you, Kyle, for having me back. Pleasure to be here. I've been active in the entrepreneurial and investment community for the past 20 years in the Chicagoland area. Been very active in helping companies raise money as well as supporting entrepreneurs. And I recently launched Propellant Ventures, which is a seed stage venture capital fund investing in the growth of Chicago and the greater Midwest. We're initially focusing on certain industries that are really accelerating because of what's going on in the world. And those industries are healthcare, future of work, fintech, supply chain, and edtech. I've also been very supportive in general of entrepreneurs, and I've run the Chicago chapter of the Founder Institute, which is a global program to assist founders raise companies, start companies. So happy to be here and share my perspective.
Awesome. And I'm excited to also hear a little bit more about Founders Institute and how you guys may be working through this new world. And I will label it as a new world. I think it's going to be kind of a new norm going forward around social media. And I'll share some of that thought and how I've experienced it both sides of the table as a founder and as an investor. So we're going to be coming back to the Founders Institute. But last but not least, my new co-host. Next to Elena, and Maria, I've got a new co-host, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gary Fowler. I know everyone probably knows you at this point, but nonetheless, follow procedure, introduction, and background so that everyone who may not.
Well, thanks, Kyle. I really enjoy being here with you. So my name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a 15-time serial entrepreneur. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold for $1.35 billion last August, actually named the company. I started, I've been in acceleration. I started the first accelerator in Russia. I started the #1 private corporate accelerator worldwide. Eva is a company I started 4 years ago. It's a top 10 AI HR tech company, Jason. Eva.ai. I know you were talking about work tech. So we trained the AI on remote workers. So love that. What happened is I went down through all that and I understood that there's a next level. There's startup 1.0, startup 2.0, and 3.0 is how do we go global? We got product market fit. We got some revenue. What's the next stage? So I started Get Shit Done Venture Studios, GSD. So that's my new company. We curate incredible AI companies that are literally positioned to be billion-dollar corporations. I've done a NASDAQ IPO, right? Been through that experience, had several exits. Now the situation, how can we really bring these opportunities around the world? Because I believe that, intellectual capital is really spread globally, but opportunities are not. And so GSD was put in place to be able to help it. And by the way, Jason, we're raising a $100 million fund in Chicago, a diversity fund. In fact, Lamel McMorris from the NAACP is on the board of advisors of my company. So we're into giving back and trying to make the world a little bit better place. But love being here, Kyle. You're an amazing guy. The best of the best.
Very kind of you. Thank you. I paid him to say that. He does it fabulously. So that is returning an investment right there. But nonetheless, guys, let's dive into social media because it does play a very powerful and different role in all of our lives, and not just investors, but in general, right? From the personal life to the work life. We look at what social media has meant to us for the past, I call it, 10, 15 years. It's really been about just connecting with people first, hopefully locally, again, IRC chat, you didn't know, but then really globally, right? Bringing that global perspective together and connecting with people you may never had before. And the early days of, as Gary kind of teed up, is globalization. We became global before we became global. That was part of that third industrial revolution as we now head into the fourth we've been talking about recently. But what has changed? Because you look at different countries around and regions around the world, you look at here in the US, so much has adjusted or shifted around social media since then, and even in the past 5 years, let alone the past 2. So let's dive in with our first question of the day and kind of talk about what is social media? How has social media evolved, and kind of what does that mean to you each? Because I think we may all have different perspectives, which will be fun. And then we'll get into more of the founder and the investor story. So Irina, I'm going to kick it off with you again. Social media, what does it mean to you? What have you seen the evolution of it really shift and change to where it is today?
First of all, as promised.
Adorable.
Your Maltese.
Yes, my Maltese puppy, as promised.
Dogs are always encouraged. All animals are encouraged. I won't,
yes.
won't separate.
I do
All
have
animals are encouraged.
I can bring out some animals if you guys want some animals here.
Let's get through social media first, and then we'll start bringing them all out. Bring out the chickens. Bring them all out. But go ahead.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me. Kind of the first proof of concept that we really saw that play social media into the minds of investors, I believe, was during ICO era. In 2017, Telegram did a great job, kind of connecting people, and it became that center for all of the projects to kind of create their group and get people to come in from all over the world and invest, right? Whether it was legal or not, we don't, this is a different subject here. In some areas it was, in some it wasn't. But I think that the most importantly, that was kind of the true proof of concept. And to me, what it demonstrated is that we no longer kind of that investors and people all over the world, they want to see the deals. They want to see early stage deals, and they want to do their due diligence reports. And most importantly, too, it became kind of a reputation type of step ladder. So if you see that the person that you trust is a part of this group and is active on the group, then all of a sudden more kind of people come into that play. And of course, now that we're in 2020, which is 3 years later, we do see that spreading out across of many different platforms. And I think now that we've been pushed away from ability to meet each other and to see each other, we're starting to rely more and more on those aspects of reputation and kind of seeing, who is this person? How do you, going and seeing what is their Facebook account and what do they do, what do they say is very normal thing to do. And most importantly, projects are now becoming and entrepreneurs becoming more comfortable talking about their work on social media, not just using the advertising tools that are given to them by platform, but actually creating a personal connection with potential investors through social media and getting their messaging out there. And I think, I'm really glad for that, because I really believe that we have outgrown the term of unsophisticated investor. And it's just something that gets me so much. I think that we now live in a world where people want to do their own research. Information is available for them, and they're willing to go and take on the risks all over the world to be able to have ability to participate in early to mid-stage companies.
You're right, and I think that personal connection is what's important, right? We talk a lot about relationship development, not just here on BCTV, but all of us do in general, right? In other conversations, and so that relationship means so much. And while social media can be a validator, it can be a huge role of diligence, I think is what we're hearing. It's also a big thing to have that relationship. If I take money from you as an entrepreneur, I hope that you're there for me, right? I hope you're there for the good, the bad, and the ugly times. You're there for the advice. You're there when we need you. And there's a relationship so that if the company succeeds or fails, we can continue to grow that success or try again. So I think you're spot on. Jason, I see you shaking your head. I mean, would love to hear your thoughts as well as how social media has really changed and your thoughts and what it means to you.
Yeah, so the biggest tool for me in all this is LinkedIn. Now, when LinkedIn started, it was really not considered social media. The term wasn't even really out there, but LinkedIn has become so much more social. I was in the first 8,000 users of LinkedIn, so felt like I was a beta user. When they hit their first 100 million, Reid Hoffman sent out a thank you letter, and then I realized, hey, LinkedIn is really here to stay. It's a big tool. When LinkedIn started, Facebook was the main tool just to connect with people. LinkedIn was focused solely on business, and they've gone up and down over the years on their engagement. I think they've finally hit a good stride with ways to be social on LinkedIn, with the blog posts, with following people. It took them a long time to figure that out, but to me, it's a very important tool to meet investors, to meet entrepreneurs. If you're structured a certain way with a fund, you can publicly market your fund on tools like LinkedIn. The last fund I was part of found most of their investors through LinkedIn. So, through Sales Navigator. So to me, LinkedIn is, before I have a conversation with anyone, whether it's an entrepreneur or an investor, I always go to LinkedIn to find more information about that person. So to me, it's a great tool. I mean, tools like other Facebook and other social media tools are important as well, but to me, that's more of a personal side of someone. And so LinkedIn for me is really the biggest tool that I take advantage of for relationship building and for initial due diligence on investors and entrepreneurs.
That's a good point. And you bring up the personal and business side. And I think some actually blend the two. So there are definitely, for me, for instance, as an investor and as an entrepreneur, or just as a person, I'll just put it out there. There are definitely those social networks I hold very tight and I do not share. And then almost all the rest are completely open, right? Twitter is a little bit of personal, but also a little bit of professional. And LinkedIn is mostly professional. Whereas Instagram, roll the dice. If you can get a hold of me, game on. Facebook is completely open for all the above. And for many years, that was a huge tool. To your point, similar way you were using LinkedIn, Facebook was a huge tool that I was hearing pitches from, connecting with people. I think it also depends on the industry in some cases. But I know we've had investors on in the past that say they take pitches anywhere. I mean, Snapchat, they've had pitches on Instagram, just cold outreach. So it's really unique to see how each of us look at this and are seeing this. Because I think, at this point, I have not had a pitch on Instagram. So I can say that, but I have on all of the other majors. So being Facebook and LinkedIn, of course, and Twitter, and I'm sure again TikTok, Triller, and Snap will come shortly enough. But yeah, I think you're spot on, and that's definitely something that's changing. And it's being a part of our daily lives now, because we are so connected. I mean, how do you get a hold of someone? You see where they're the most active. I think to Irina's point, and Gary, I'm going to come to you. I'll just say with a comment is, look, email is email, and you just really don't know what we're going to get anymore on email, right? Jason, for instance, you may be a power LinkedIn user, and I see that, and I know that you probably won't answer email, but I'll hit you up on LinkedIn. Whereas I know Irina does not use LinkedIn. In this case, she does. But if she doesn't, I'll try reaching out to her on email, right? For so many years, it was email first. Now those avenues have sprouted as well. But before we get into that any deeper, Gary, I want to make sure you get your thoughts in as well. I mean, you're living the AI life. You got the artificial intelligence power and everything you do, but all jokes aside, how are you seeing social media really transform, and what does it mean to you now?
I mean, well, think about what's happening, right? We need to develop our relationships deeper. In fact, one of the guys that works for me, my VP of strategy, wrote the book, Business is a Contact Sport. And that's really what it's about. So what are the most important things when you're building a company and you're raising money? Trust. So if you have yourself out on LinkedIn and people can look at you and see what your accomplishments are, it dramatically increases the chance that they're going to want to work with you. The other thing is point 2, get published. I try to publish 2 to 4 articles every single week. Forbes, Medium, Security Source. And the other thing is I look for co-authors that are world renowned. For instance, I did one with a former chief security officer at Apple, an article about security, dramatically increased the attention. So write. It's really important, and get topics that are really interesting. So the pandemic and COVID, how to be able to accelerate transformation post-COVID, those kind of things. Be topical. And, you know, if you understand those concepts, it also helps you get the word out. So be an influencer. So between last year and this year, I've written 68 articles, 70 articles. So I've really stepped it up recently. But so now I'm doing 2 to 4, and I'm writing in Russian and I'm writing in English. So publishing
Influencer to the max.
Well, you know, you got to get the visibility out. So that's door number 2. The other thing is, what you want to do is be very careful about what you post, even on Facebook. I one time had a picture. Somebody asked me to pose with a champagne bottle, and I thought it was kind of funny because it was one of my MBA classes, one of my students. But that thing started to go viral. So I've learned not to take compromising pictures of any sort, and to keep it across all social media platforms good, right? To hit the mainstream. Mm-hmm. So the other thing is, when you're posting, now it's different. Post things that are pertinent, right? When you're going to post things on LinkedIn, things that are going to get attention and they're pertinent. If you're going to have visuals, make sure the visuals relate to that particular article or that particular post. Make it interesting. Guess what? People are home a lot more. People are working out of their houses. They want to be entertained. Part of what we do is entertainment, right? If you don't see some people that are entertaining, you don't watch. But guys like you, Kyle, that are very entertaining, and Irina and Jason, you know, it's interesting. So what we want to do is entertain. That's part of the game. And the other thing is create value, right? Create value for them. Help them. Don't sell yourself. Help. What kind of things what kind of tips can you give to be able to help other people help themselves, help those companies help themselves?
And we've seen a lot more investors, I would argue, especially on Twitter, really putting themselves out there and trying to help on value creation or education about, you know, how they see the fundraising process for you guys, you know, what their lessons learned about raising a fund. I mean, it's not easy. Everyone thinks it is. It is not. Just to the entrepreneurs out there, guess what? As difficult as your journey is fundraising for your company, it's equally challenging for an investor to go raise a fund to invest and listen to your pitch and invest in your company. Trust me, it's difficult to raise money in any way, shape, or form. And so you see more people sharing those insights and talking about that. It's all business development. That's very ideal, but that's fine. That education needs to be put out there. But with all that being said, I want to come back and talk about the seriousness and maybe that trust factor, because, you know, if you go back 5-10 years, one of the biggest social networks we have not mentioned is AngelList. AngelList is very much a social network. If you look at its definition and how it connects people, how it also is a platform for investors and founders to find each other. And so we've all taken investment pitches through AngelList. We've seen the syndicates. Now taking that into new platforms or traditional, being Instagram and Twitter, and some that are coming like Discord and others. Do you take pitches when they come through social media seriously as if they came through your inbox? And the reason I ask is, in your inbox, you can get a warm introduction. In social media, you may not always necessarily get that. So trust. Do you take that in seriousness of a pitch as it comes through social media, just as you would through email? Gary, Irina, Jason. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, most of the pitches that I get, and I get quite a few, are coming through, they've met me some way, shape, or form. So I'm doing, you know, I have my own show that I do every 2 weeks. And they're coming through that. They're coming through different sources. So most of the time they're warm. And so when I see them, the other thing is the challenge is I have 5,000 people on Facebook and I have a long list of people that want to be friends. So I do get these hidden messages where they have pictures attached and I look at them. But what I do is if I get it in my inbox and I'm inundated with email, I get hundreds of emails every day. I don't know what everybody else is like, Irina, Jason, Kyle, but Elena, I get hundreds of emails. And if I don't look at my email for 2 or 3 hours, it's hard for me to look at it. I just almost forget about it. It's that hard. So email is really one dimensional. We need to have 3-dimensional views. If somebody sends something to me on LinkedIn, somebody sends me an email, somebody sends me on Facebook or WhatsApp, I'm way more likely to look at it because I know they got the right stuff. They got the grit and they're really, really hungry. So, I mean, that's where I am from my standpoint. I think we're in an unprecedented time to be able to use these data sources. Kyle, the one thing we got to remember, the VCs need deal flow too. They need deal flow, and it's hard as heck to get it today unless you're using the data sources that are out there.
Well, it's competitive. It's
competitive.
competitive.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So let's open up this world real quick. I mean, again, as entrepreneurs, it's exhausting to raise capital. It takes you away from your business. It just drains, but it's a big part of what you do. As investors, it's part of our job to go out and find that deal flow, to find the best companies. It's also competitive because you may not get in, you may be fighting to get in, you may have to get an introduction from someone, just as an entrepreneur has to get an introduction to you. This is a very competitive world, and it's good to see that. You have more and more outlets. And Irina, you were about to jump in, so I'll turn it over to you as well.
Yeah, to me, I really look at kind of how they approach me. If they just kind of drop me information about their company that is just a copy paste. There is nothing personable about that. It's just, I'm one of the hundreds of people that they're emailing. It's just a noise to me, and that's just kind of how I work. I don't do well with noises because I'm on so many platforms, right? Like just Telegram alone, I have 8 groups that are there, right? And add everything else, it's just too much. So what I look at is what common connection we have. If they have a friend that I know is very tight with their acceptance of friendships, it kind of enters them into, I'll hear whatever you have to say automatically. I won't even look at what they want me to look at. I'll just want to hear from this person because I know that their reputation, they're connected to a person who is very strict with who they open up their social pocket to, if that makes sense. And then what I do too for me is then see how they approach it. If they see relevance, or of kind of whether I can benefit them at all, right? So that's my approach. I scan through and see if it's a noise and it's just an empty, I call them empty rattles. I'm just one of many people, or if they actually specifically targeting me to get my advice or see what I think about, their project. And if they have put in some time into getting hold of me, then I will give them time, because I feel that it's kind of it's the benefit back, because they invested time in me. I'm investing time back to them. And I think that creates a really great balance.
Mm-hmm. I like the mutual connection part. I think that's also something that's lost, right? There's the warm introduction, but there's also mutual connection. If I see an entrepreneur is connected to you, Gary, and Jason, I'm like, oh, this person's probably pretty legit, right? And then I've got 3 sources I can go to very quickly to ask about that. Whereas sometimes that cold outreach, there's a lot more research as well. So Jason, coming to you, I mean, same question as we continue the conversation.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I've been very active in the entrepreneurial community for 20 years. So I have a lot of touch points in the community. A lot of things are sent my way through investors, through entrepreneurs, through service providers, just people that I've built into my network over many years. So trust is extremely important for me as well. So if it's coming from a source that I know, I definitely will take that serious, especially if it's coming from an investor that's, invested in the company. I'll take that even more serious. But a lot of stuff comes regularly. I do get unsolicited on LinkedIn occasionally, or not more than occasionally, quite often. I want to be a resource and accessible for entrepreneurs, so I will take a look at it. I usually will try to take a phone call or Zoom meeting, even if I have remote interest, just to be a resource, because you can't always learn everything from a document or a message. So I try to have a phone call or some other kind of way to communicate. I'm also very active with office hours for different accelerators, so I get deal flow that way as well too. So the fact that's coming from a trusted source like the accelerator, also provides a level of credibility for me as well. But I would say most of the deals are coming from trusted sources that I know personally.
That's a good point. Whether it be the accelerator or just that trusted, again, that trust circle that Irina started us all off with is incredibly important. And social media adds validation to that. That being said, Jason, we'll start with you on this. Are you using social media as diligence, or have you heard of other investors that use social media as diligence, whether it be for both the company and the entrepreneurs? Kind of goes what Gary mentioned about the fun picture he took years ago, but how do you see social media playing a role in the diligence process?
Yeah, for me, it's mostly been LinkedIn. Again, whether you consider it social media or not, that's a tool that I've used where you can get some basic information, learn about who's on their team, assuming if that matches with what they send you. If you can see that there's people listed in LinkedIn, you can find a little bit how they describe their business on LinkedIn. You can find out when the company was started, if they put the proper date on there. So I use it for some basic information, but then also it gives me a good background of the founder, because sometimes they don't go into that level of detail in their deck. Mm-hmm. But for me, LinkedIn's a good tool for that. I haven't really looked at other tools so much. LinkedIn is mostly what I've started with. Then I look at the information and have a conversation with the founder. But again, LinkedIn is a business tool, so you assume most of it's accurate, but you still want to validate it. But for me, that's been the biggest tool I've used so far.
That's a good point, and same here. And I will say for me, I've actually played the spread of looking at LinkedIn, but then also Twitter and where the company's social media is, right? But as a founder, to Gary's point, and Gary, I'm coming to you next, is I want to see what they're talking about. Is there some thought leadership here, especially if it's a rocketing company? Are they talking about the company? How do they represent the company? How do they talk about the company? Are they talking about the industry as well? So you're spot on Jason as well. And Gary, same to you. How are you seeing social media play a role in the diligence process?
If you sorry about that, if you find somebody, what I do a lot of times is I just cross-check. And I have a graduate degree in clinical psychology too, so I want to know who the person is. So what I do is I actually look at different data sources. So I'll go to Facebook. So there'll be a startup, and I'll look at their Facebook page. What kind of friends do they have? What do they like to travel? What do they like to do? And I want to understand who they are. And so then the other thing is I go out to I Google their names, and I want to find out what kind of, so I've gone, somebody said they graduated from Harvard and they were in this club, and I actually did research back. I just wanted to find out. It was interesting for me, and they were, and it helps me develop that relationship, because you want to understand, as a venture capitalist investing in a company, you're going to be with that person. You're married to that company for quite some time. You want to figure out what kind of person they are, what kind of company it is. I do check, on their Facebook page to see if their co-founders are on their Facebook page. You know, do they hang around together? That kind of thing. You just want a picture. So part of the due diligence is that. I mean, I've done other due diligence too. I've drilled down and used other data sources to check them out even further, you know, like background kind of stuff, because I just want to understand. If you're going to put your money in, you want to make sure you're putting it in the right place.
It's a good point. Irina, the same to you.
Yeah, the same. I actually Google, first thing I do is Google person, because it just gives me a drop of all the links to where they have presence, and I can see whether they have thought leadership or not. And then I go to LinkedIn or Facebook first. It varies. It depends how I feel, you know, kind of about that, and dig in. I really like to see what they post personally. You know, I like to see personality, you know, so not just a kind of a dry business, what their dry business, but I want to see who they hang out with, what kind of ideas they have and all that. So I like to go, I think cross-checking basically goes down to that. A little side note, it's devastated my mother, by the way. She always thought I needed to be an economist because she was an economist. And I went to psychology and learned psychology because I wanted to understand why people make decisions in business that they make, right? Like, so, but it devastated my mother. And I think that kind of still crosses to who I am right now I really want to understand what that person does and how they think, and see if there's patterns, right? Sometimes it's like a great business, but I'm like, there's just no way we'll be able to have it just will not be a relationship that will end up working out. It would be too much strain on me. So, you know, I politely declined the offer to work together.
Well, and that's okay too, right? That's again the thing we have to learn as entrepreneurs, but also we have to learn as investors, is that, you know, there's various reasons from a founder's point. You know, it's hard to take a no or being ghosted, which is the unfortunate thing. But from an investor side, there's many reasons why we may pass on a deal. And to Irina's point, you know, that bond, that relationship just may not be there. And as Gary and Jason have said, this is a long-term thing. We're in it more than likely for 5 to 10 plus years. And if things go real well, and maybe sometimes if they don't, we're going to come back. We want to be in it for another 5. We want to be in it for another 10, right? We build that trust and that relationship with you. Yeah. But now here's an interesting question for you guys. I was just thinking about this. We're sitting here on Zoom. This is, as I joke, my new social network. I love it. It's super fun, but there is an evolution of this happening. You know, we just got news yesterday that CES, Consumer Electronics Show, the largest conference, I believe still the largest conference globally in technology and electronics, is going completely virtual, completely. That's one of the biggest in-person conferences, almost 200,000 people a year at its peak. That's a lot of people in one room, a lot of networking that can happen socially. But right now, we're all attending virtual events on a regular basis. And with that, we have these new platforms that have started to rise. And I'm gonna say as an argument, this is a new wave of social media that may be here to stay long term. And on those, whether it be Brella or Hopin or a bunch of others, they have this networking component that allows each person to connect with others and maybe pitching, maybe selling, solicited or unsolicited, Jason, but nonetheless are reaching out. How do you feel as investors about this new world of events and virtual events that are happening and being able to connect or being pitched by entrepreneurs through these? Because again, this is different. This is not your personal Instagram or your company Twitter. This is now you're at a virtual event. Someone is messaging you through these new platforms. How is that playing a role? What do you think about that? Because that is going to be the new norm going forward with events, regardless of when in-person start back up. So Jason, let's start with you. I mean, with the Founders Institute as well, I'm sure this is a big conversation topic. So how do you see this as an investor and playing a role in your process, and positive, negative?
So first of all, I don't believe that you have to meet every investor and every entrepreneur before you invest in you or you invest in their company. The last fund I was a part of, we hardly met any investors or any companies. We did everything remote. Now, we were not a lead investor, but it can be done. And so the paradigm shift is happening with investors where you don't have to meet everyone in person. You know, it's more, things are more efficient. You're saving money and time by doing that. So yeah, there's a lot of Zoom calls like this where you get to meet entrepreneurs one-on-one. I have these calls almost every day with entrepreneurs and with many investors throughout the week as well. You know, this is the closest you're going to get other than having an in-person meeting. So you can still see the person's face. I still think it's important to have your video on when you're talking to people so you can engage with them. And, you know, there's nonverbal cues you can see as well while you're doing a video chat. With that said, yeah, these platforms, I definitely are here to stay. I think there's going to be a hybrid approach once we can comfortably go back to events, in-person events. I've been on several different platforms, you know, and some are better than others. You know, one of my favorite platforms is one that one of our Founder Institute companies created called GamerJibe. It's a 3D virtual environment. We did an event last night, and you basically walk around with an avatar and interact with people one-on-one. So we had startup pitches as well. We had several founders that had pre-recorded pitches, and then you could engage with them one-on-one. The platform can also do live pitches, but we did pre-recorded pitches. We have tabletop discussions. We have sponsor booths and just general open area where you can talk one-on-one with people through video, voice, or text chat. So, and you can share your screen as well. And a lot of investors come to the event. I've met several investors there. I've met many entrepreneurs. So, and it's, even though we're targeting Chicago, the Midwest, Chicagoland, we have people from all over the country that are attending and people from all over the world as well. Since these events are open to anyone, people find out about it. And same thing with and it's a public event. A lot of these platforms, you know, with the office hours are private. I've been a part of some of those, like Sococo, I think is one that was more like a 2D type of situation where you just meet with people one-on-one, much like you're doing with Zoom. Yeah, they're definitely not going away. That's for sure. I see people still continuing to do these, and CES is not even until April next year, and they've already decided to go virtual. And so you'll probably see a lot more people doing virtual next year as well. South by Southwest, it's unfortunate they didn't figure out a virtual, you know, they did some things after the fact, but I know they made a decision like a week to go, right, before, so they didn't have a lot of time to plan anything. But Collision did a nice online event as well. So if you have enough notice, you can really do well and have engaging conversations. You know, I've been part of some Zoom discussions where you do breakout rooms and you get to be in the room with 4 or 5 people, and that's a really good way to meet new people as well too. Yeah, so I'm excited about what all this, where this is headed, because it's here to stay.
Yeah, and on the virtual side, you know, bring up a good point. We saw this with Decentraland and a few other virtual worlds pop up where, you know, there was interactive pitches that were happening in the virtual environment. You know, and it sounds a little science fiction-y or a little far out, but I mean, this is here. I mean, this is how this is all going to connect, because to Gary's point, and also what Irina's probably going to talk about on the decentralized comment is, I mean, this is the new way that we will continue to connect. I remember the first time I went to Asia and, you know, discovered WeChat. And still to this day, you know, years and years later, I still get pitched on WeChat. You know, that is a common place. And, you know, Irina brought up Telegram. These platforms are something we're going to continue to see more of. It's just figuring out which one is the best to approach the person, just again, like you would an email or a mutual connection. But Irina, what are you seeing on this event circuit? I mean, you and I know, attended a lot of these in the same industry, and we're either speaking or we're as investors on the demo days. How are you seeing these play a role? I mean, are you engaged? Are you less engaged? How are they playing a role in your process as an investor?
I feel that overall, our newfound connectivity, forced connectivity, building up a lot of bridges. People are now more willing to participate in the virtual pitches more than before. I do enjoy VR, for example, the most. I did a Happening party for Happening, of course, can't miss that. And it was really lovely to be able to kind of feel the personal presence right there in front of you, and feel the distance of their voice as they coming in and speaking to you as you would in a person. Obviously there's still no arms and it looks weird, and there are glitches with that, but I think that's going to get us closer to that. I think that in the future we'll have a hybrid, like you said. I think the good thing about it is that there are a lot of people that do not have financial freedom to be able to travel a lot. And a lot of, I've been very concerned with the projects kind of getting on the roadshow, especially with crypto projects, getting onto the roadshow and following all these conferences all over the world and spending enormous amount of money trying to pitch to investors in those countries. And I feel like they don't really need to do that until they kind of get more mature, because I'd rather they spend the money that they're spending on that on building their product, right? And not the schmoozing, right? It's extremely expensive to go on these roadshows. And so I think that, and then also, of course, there's those people that would like to attend conferences, but they don't have financial means to be able to go and travel somewhere, even if it's another city. We're not even talking about other country, right? Mm-hmm. Even in another city, even if you are driving a car, it's still extremely expensive for some of these people, and then they have to miss work. And I think that's really wonderful aspect of that, is that we can now, log in and see basically anybody, right? If you go and search for conferences, they're happening every day. And the speakers are, as a speakers too, it's much easier to be able to give time to this, to people that are reaching out, because you can schedule something for later. At the conference, they all come at you and all the projects come at you and everybody wants to tell you how best they are. And then, and then the momentum goes and you have the speaker dinners and you have VIP and you have things that you have to attend for the pitches, for the kind of for the companies that are already preset the pitch time and private one-on-one. And so I feel that it takes away a lot from those that are just kind of I call them cold calling, right? Just people that come at you, they get inspired, they want your assistance, they want to talk to you about the project, and they end up just not being able to, because again, it's like that noise. So I do think that it will be great for the future that we're developing and trailblazing this new pathways, there's new different platforms that will allow projects save money, those that don't have money to be able to go to conferences and get inspired to maybe start businesses, because all it takes is just an idea, it's and then you start, like you say, Gary, get shit done, right? But it starts with idea, right? You get an idea, and often that idea is inspired by hearing other people or seeing other people. And I do believe that we're approaching the new age where global investments will be possible, and that unaccredited investors will have ability to participate in the deals that are not available to them right now. And I think that the tool of this, that's like that tiny little raisin, right? That necessary tool that we must have, this connectivity, this virtual way of connecting and being able to get them this information. I think it's what is happening right now. It's this virtual ways of doing that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think one point I'll add to that as we get to Gary's thoughts here before our lightning round is, as an investor, make it clear where you spend your time on social media as well, right? If that's what you want, to be clear. And it may not be for everybody, but if you're out there, make it known where you are, but also be open and accepting to pitches anywhere. Just make sure that you're out and about. And I think you bring up a great point, both you and Jason, around these events. I mean, we're attending events, not just our favorite VCTV events, shameless plug, but we're also attending these events at least once or twice a week. Now go back into 2019. There wasn't like that. Maybe once a quarter, once a month, however frequently it was, a demo day here and there. I mean, let's be honest, everyone's busy. Now, as investors, we can attend multiple events, see multiple different things around the world that we may have never been able to see. What does that mean for you, entrepreneurs? Sorry to point out the obvious, but it's true. You now have so many more touch points to reach not just us on VCTV, but to reach us as investors than you ever have. And to Arena's point, global investors. You can now reach an investor in Europe while you're sitting in Mexico, or in Argentina while you may be in Australia. And those investors may be the most strategic investors you need. And rather than having to go through this crazy cycle before, now it's quick and easy, and they're more active than ever before. This was a trend we were already starting to move to. Guess what? Digitization happened way faster than anyone expected. So with that being said, Gary, to your last thoughts here, what are you seeing as well? And then we'll get to the lightning round.
Well, look at it. This is really, as I said earlier, the democratization of opportunity. So in the last 3 days, I've been on judging African startups. I mean, some people don't know it. Africa's got 1.2 billion people, right? And it's a rising star. I've been involved with Indian startups. I've been involved in Thai startups. I've been in last night European startups. So there's an opportunity. And, the investors that are shrewd and smart are going to be out there looking at these sources, because intellectual capital is dispersed. Find where those opportunities are and get there before other people get in and help guide it, right? I know when we opened our accelerator in Russia, there hadn't been anything like it before. And he had all these really bright, incredible people. And yet, they hadn't really done commercialization and for the most part, taking companies global. When we started it, it was like, I don't know if we have to do it. Now it's huge. It's a movement, right? Well, it's the same thing's going to happen in Africa. The same thing's happening in Vietnam. So let's be part of it and look for those opportunities. You want those rising stars. So you get the next Facebook, you get the next Twitter, you get the next LinkedIn. You want to be part of it. So you need to connect the dots, and you need to do it now. Be first, go out and search. So the startups, use your channels wisely. Find out where there are events, pitch, do your research on LinkedIn, find out who's got the background as a judge, do your due diligence in advance that understands your particular area, and focus on that person when you're doing the pitch and start to cultivate that relationship. Just work wisely. This is sales 101. Nothing's really changed, right? It's managing that relationship.
Everyone's shaking their head. It's just new mediums. That's it. Don't be afraid to share your pitch. You cold outreach an investor all the time. Guess what? It's no different on social media. It's just a different medium. Get out there. You're not the first to think of your idea. And if you are, 1 in a billion, congratulations. Nonetheless, you're probably one of the best to execute on it. That's what we want to see. We want to see what you've put together, but that you are the right team and the right individuals to make it happen. So don't be afraid. Reach out on many channels, figure out where the best is to connect, do your diligence. As Gary said, do your homework. It works both ways. We're going to do it on you. You should be doing it on us, so that way we are valid and worth the time talking to, or it's a good relationship to build over time because we may be in the future. Something to think about. Relationship development, sales 101 to Gary's point. All right, lightning round. So fun little question, and then we're going to closing thoughts. What social media, aside from LinkedIn, Jason, what social media are you open to hearing pitches on that people may not be aware of? And Jason cannot use LinkedIn, neither can Gary, neither can Irina. So outside of LinkedIn, where are you open to hearing pitches that people may not be aware of? Gary, starting with you.
I mean, I'm getting them on Facebook. I'm getting it on I just got one on WhatsApp. So, I mean, I don't care where they come from, and on the other side of it, we got to remember, we all have so many data sources, we forget where we're getting things. So make sure that that person is active in that particular social media, because you may send something that never gets looked at. So be careful, do your research. But Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, happy to take a look at them.
If they haven't tweeted since 2018,
Exactly.
probably not a good idea to hit them up on Twitter. Just thought. But
Exactly.
all jokes aside, Irina, social network outside of LinkedIn.
Facebook is definitely the platform for me. I'm pretty active there. You can get hold of me basically on all of the platforms though. Telegram probably is the worst because so much noise, just so much noise. It all gets, so do not contact me on Telegram at all. I'm serious.
No, this is why I'm asking this question to all of us, is that Telegram and a few others, depending on the person,
Too much noise.
are a little noisy. And so back to the point Gary made, and Irina is leaning here, is look, it's okay if we don't get back to you right away. Things are very noisy and we're getting hit up on many channels. Do a follow-up, send an email, go through this multi-channel process. Don't hit us on 15 networks with the same message.
Right.
At once. It's called a bot, people. Let's keep this a little personal. But Jason, this is gonna be the hardest for you, man. You're a LinkedIn OG. Let's take a step out of the LinkedIn world. Where do you want people, where can people reach out to you outside of LinkedIn for a pitch?
Yeah, similar to what everyone else said, Facebook could work. I'm active on Facebook, more personal, but I do post events and other business things, so Facebook could work. Also, just some of these platforms you talked about, that you're part of a demo day or office hours or a pitch competition. Those could be considered social networks. Maybe they're closed, but those are great ways to hear pitches too. And I've already done a bunch of those. And so, Facebook is still for the most part closed just to your network usually. So some of those other platforms like Sococo that I was part of, or Gamer Jive, those are all good platforms as well. And I'm open to try new ones as well.
There you go. A LinkedIn OG has told you where else to find them. Now, nonetheless, I'll throw my answer in Twitter. If we're not talking about LinkedIn, Twitter is the best spot to hit me up. So definitely with all of you as well. Guys, we have come to the top of the hour. We have to end here in just a moment. So I want to make sure everyone knows where to find you on these social media networks and also in general. So let's go around the room. Gary, we're going to start with you as my co-host. You're on the show every day. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's start with you. Where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So you can get me on LinkedIn, Gary Fowler. You can send me an email, gary@gsdvs.com. I'm happy to listen to you. I'm on WhatsApp too. Reach out. Love to hear your ideas. Like to see what I can do to help. Remember, stay positive and GSD. Get shit done.
Boom. Irina.
You can Google me and it will give you all the links. Irina Litchfield, or at Crypto Superwoman works as well. It will take you to all the same links. Just message me. Yeah, I'll check the messages even if I don't friend you. So don't send me like a friend request. Just message me.
There's 2 for 2. We're going 3 for 3 with the LinkedIn OG. Jason, close us out. Where can everyone find you?
Of course, on LinkedIn. You can also, I agree, send me a message before a LinkedIn request. That way, put some thought behind it so I know why you're contacting me. Also, my email, jason@propellant.vc works as well.
Wonderful. Guys, thank you so much, all of you, for joining today. Super appreciative and sharing your insights on, the Basset Hound. Adorable. And thank you not only for joining, but for bringing the pets on today. All the puppies were amazing. To your live audience, thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Again, feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. What else we can add? What can we change? We'd love to have you on the show. So feel free to let us know if you'd like to share your insights on various topics, regions, and things happening around the world. Thank you, Gary, as well. And to our entrepreneurs, we've just told you where to reach out. We're looking, our inboxes, our messages, our DMs, our everythings are open. We'd love to hear from you as well. A big thank you to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible. I and Elena, LA Token, will all be back here, and maybe my co-host Gary. We'll see. We'll be back here tomorrow for another edition of VCTV, and can't wait to see you. Everyone have a wonderful